I'm thankful for having friends like you, support, community, and talk about, reinforce our carnivore lifestyle and how healthy it makes us. And some people need this more than others. It's a wonderful thing to have support and the strength of fellow carnivores. So I'm grateful for you guys.
Very good.
Okay, we're live. Welcome everybody to a Thanksgiving special Carnivore Mastermind. It's Thursday, Thanksgiving Day here in the United States. And so for anybody celebrating Thanksgiving this year, happy Thanksgiving to you. And we thought we'd just hang out, kind of do an open forum, just chat and hang out and be here for anybody who maybe perhaps you're alone on Thanksgiving or you're the only carnivore. And, we wanted to still come have a little bit of fellowship and support and just a nice little chat tonight. So thanks everybody for being here as usual. I'm always glad to hang out with you guys and spend time with all of you on the panel. Thank you for sharing your time today with us. So I guess we'll just kind of go around and everybody can give their thoughts on the day, really anything you want to talk about, what you ate, how you feel about Thanksgiving, and anything you're grateful for. And then if anybody in the chat wants to share anything, we will pop that up as well and discuss it. So thanks. Yeah, Keto Simple says, make sure to hit that thumbs up button on each channel to show love and support. That would be amazing. Thank you. Let's see. We've got Carnivore K here in the house. Of course, Keto Simple, we just brought up your comment. And Booby Goats, happy Thanksgiving from Ohio. Excellent. So, okay, we'll start with DC. You're in another country, so explain to us. Do you do Thanksgiving? Do you not? How does it work over there? What are your thoughts?
No, Australia doesn't do Thanksgiving. We don't have that whole ritual. I know it's different now in America to what it was when it originally started, but I think obviously there's that whole, corporate marketing sort of side of things over there, Black Friday sales. We do have that, actually, the Black Friday sales, which we're having today because it's Friday here. But we don't actually have the Thanksgiving ceremony. I think it's something that we could do with. I think it's because a lot of our culture, I think we've lost a lot of holidays. Like, Easter is very much commercialized now. We don't have the traditional sort of celebrations anymore, and Christmas is much the same as well. We don't do Halloween, but we get the commercialized side of things. So today we're having the Black Friday sale, but I think I like the idea of Thanksgiving because I think that we should give thanks for the things that we have, for the people that we have around us. And, I think that's something we should think about every day, actually, not just one day a year too, But that's Australia anyway.
All right. I'm John Laspina, Carnivore Teacher. I am grateful. That's what I'm thankful. That's what Thanksgiving means to me in our country. I've learned to be grateful and thankful. It is extremely healthy for the human body to express that daily. Good chemicals are sent to the brain and all over the body when you are thinking about all the things that you have and that you're grateful for. I was raised in a very pessimistic family, Italian Catholic. Everything was gloom and doom, and we dwelled on the negative. And I realized how you can tell it's unhealthy. It is so healthy to just count stock, even take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, all the things that you're grateful for, and maybe some of the problems you have on the other side. The things you're grateful for and that you have going for you is so much longer of a list. And it puts you in a good mood. And so I think it's healthy to exercise this, not just on Thanksgiving, but every day. I love this holiday the most of all American holidays because it's the least commercialized holiday. I know Good Friday is all about going out and shopping, but the actual Thanksgiving Day and spending time with loved ones and sharing a common meal, whether their meal is healthy or not, just the concept of sharing a common meal with your loved ones and being thankful. I love that idea. It would be great if we had more holidays that focused on the basics instead of how they became commercialized and crazy. I know when I was a kid, I was the pain in the neck child that would always ask the adults, why is there a tree for Christmas? There were no trees in Bethlehem, cone trees. Why is there a bunny and eggs when it was about Jesus resurrection, coming back from the dead? I would always ask why? And a lot of the adults couldn't really give me the answers, and they tried to shut me up. So even as a kid, I realized that these holidays are so commercialized, and they have changed from their from their origination because of probably greed and money. It's crazy. So now I know what all the holidays are for. I actually taught the real meanings to my students when I was in the classroom, and they were fascinated. They didn't know a lot of the facts. Thanksgiving, that has even changed, from its original. They didn't have turkeys. The Native Americans didn't feed the Pilgrims turkeys. There were no turkeys around. We had deer and lobster, believe it or not. So I'm grateful for knowledge and for my friends and for good health from the carnivore diet. And I'll leave it at that and go on to my Miami friend there.
The original carnivore quack, 41 years and counting. And I'm thankful I haven't gotten that heart attack yet. It should have been here by now, but I'm still waiting. And I have my little assistant over here, my little black cat, and he decided to join in. If you probably noticed, as soon as I sat here at the mic, he walked up there and fell asleep. So that's good. Hopefully he won't be trying to attack because he's a little carnivore around here. And what did I eat today? Well, I had heart attack chicken for lunch. I had a little piece of meat and some eggs for breakfast. Then I'll have ground beef for dinner. I didn't get my usual treat, which would be from the canal, a nice big fat Muscovy duck, but all the ducks are in hiding. They probably know what time of the year it is. I went to the canal yesterday and today. There were no ducks at all. There was a few Egyptian geese, but no ducks. So, no iguanas either. I mean, a couple of little ones, but no big ones. So, but the good thing is I didn't have to work today. And even better, I should be meeting a friend of mine tomorrow for lunch, which will be the first time I've met anyone from YouTube in 17 years. So if it happens, I'll see if I can get my camera and make a little video of it. But that'll be something a little different. But today, I spent the day around the house. I cleaned out my van, threw out some garbage, worked a little in the yard, and that's it. So again, I'm looking forward to tomorrow and see if anything interesting will happen, because it's not too often anybody comes down here. I live on the end of the world, so I think a lot of people really don't want to come here.
That's funny. Yeah. We had a nice chill day today, and I love Thanksgiving. It's always been my favorite holiday. I think it's partly because it's the gateway into the rest of the holiday season, and so it's kind of like you get to start Christmas music right afterwards. And the last couple years now that I've been carnivore, and in the past too, I realized, there's a lot of focus on food, and there's a reason for that, right? Like kind of some points that have been brought up already. Like there is tradition in gathering around and sharing food. That's actually very ancestral. Like I totally understand why there is that emotional pull and that cultural pull towards doing things like that. So when you're in a position where you're trying to change what you eat, right, or not participate in some of the things that have gotten over commercialized and kind of over processed and over stimulating, right, that we have let creep into our holiday celebrations, it can be kind of challenging, right? But I feel like focusing on preparing good food, like I made ham and picanha today, and I made some meat chips that actually turned out really good. I got, instead of slicing my own, I got some deli roast beef from the store yesterday and just added some extra salt and threw them in the dehydrator. They came out like amazing. They were super crunchy and like tasted just like chips. So I ate those as kind of like the snacky appetizer. And So there's all kinds of, I guess I'm going off on two tangents. There's all kinds of interesting, creative food options that, the longer you do this kind of, and you hone in on what you like and what you miss, maybe you're like, there's lots of different modifications and adaptations you can do to still feel like, hey, I'm having something a little bit special, or I'm doing something a little bit extra, if that feels good, to participate in these things. But on the other side of that, I've really leaned more into like decorating and the music and the candles and like, kind of some of these other things that just create this atmosphere where it just invites you viscerally to feel grateful, right? Or to enter into that state of feeling like the magic of the holiday season. And I think that's what's really helped me, kind of looking at the way I approached last year as a carnivore. And now again, this year, it's like, it just feels good and peaceful, and it's not stressful, and I'm not like freaking out about what this or that or whatever. It's like, it's just the way that it should be. And I think that's both a testament to eating this way, because I don't have anxiety, like just always like a baseline state of anxiety like I used to, but also, it's cultivated intentionally by the way that I'm reprogramming myself to think about these things. And so that's sort of the way I approach it now. And I feel like I've had success with that. And that's kind of the encouragement that I try to offer others now. Because when you intentionally like that, cultivate your environment so that it's the way that is the most inviting for you to enter, that state of feeling happy and peaceful and grateful, without it having to be 100% tied to food, then it's just easier. And you just kind of flow through things better. So those are my thoughts. Plus, I had a nap today, which is always a cool thing. Ate food and then took a nap, and now here we are. So for the second half of the day. So I'm curious to know, maybe from some people in the comments, what you all ate today. I saw a couple people throw some things up. I'm scrolling back here to see.
Yeah, I think the worst part about the commercialization of these holidays, though, is the processed foods, the ultra processed foods. Like I quite like the decorations and everything that people put up. Like especially in America, you love to decorate a lot. I actually quite enjoy that part. Especially like Christmas and it sort of adds to the atmosphere and things like that. But when it comes to like all these different processed foods that come out, and it's absolutely horrifying, the foods that come out for Christmas. And they like these people will buy these gingerbread, like pre-made gingerbread homes and stuff like that just rancid things that are probably months or even years old, some of them.
I agree with you there, DC. We have so much junk, so much carbs and sugar. And I used to love it. I did. And I indulged and gained weight and got sick and problems from it. And the holidays are often known to be the sugar holidays from our perspective. Today we bought a standing rib roast, like a prime rib, and just took it. It was wrapped in string. They were on sale. I bought 3 of them. I put 2 in the deep freeze. One's going to be for Christmas. One will be maybe New Year's. I don't know. And took it and put it on our Traeger grill. Anybody who doesn't know what a Traeger grill is, it's a grill that uses wood pellets. You get smoked wood pellets that look like little gerbil food. You put it in the hopper. You turn the temperature. We set it to 220 degrees, and the auger pushes the pellets in, and they slowly burn to keep you at that temperature. And we slow smoked our standing rib roast from 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And we waited till it was about 120 degrees. We have a little thermometer we put in, a wireless thermometer, so I can look on my cell phone and see when it's ready. I took it out, let it sit for 10 minutes and get a little warmer on the inside, sliced into that. It was smoky and juicy and delicious. And I just ate it until my body said, enough. I didn't have any sides. I didn't put anything on it. I salted it, with Redmond real salt because that's my favorite. And it was absolutely phenomenal with lots of leftovers. And my favorite part of our standing rib roast tonight was cut the bottom part off. I made a video about it and put it on YouTube already while I was waiting to come on here. My favorite part is to take the bone and to sit there like Fred Flintstone and just eat the meat off the bone. I mean, my beard was soaked with the juice from this prime rib. I was moaning while I was eating it. It was so good. So that was my Thanksgiving meal.
Nothing
Yeah, I
better
was
than
surprised
home
how
cooked anyway.
I was surprised how full I got. You go into this thinking I'm going to eat all this stuff, and then we've got so much left over, like so much left over in the fridge. But that's cool because now I don't have to cook for 3-4 days now.
Couple days.
So that's all good. Yeah, I made 2 picanhas that we haven't even cut into those yet because the ham was huge and it took like an hour longer than I thought it was going to get done. And so we ended up eating that, first, and then kind of saving the rest for later.
It's good that at least your holidays are still sort of centered around eating meat.
Well, ours is because we're carnivore, and I think a lot of people have. The base is the meat. It's the turkey, it's the ham, or whatever, the prime rib. But then all the sides and the desserts are also available for most people. And that's when people just eat all the crap, and it's not healthy, But that's the standard American diet for you, whether it's the holidays or not. It's people, when I tell people that all I had was meat for dinner, they're like, no sides? They look at me, they roll their eyes. They're like, why not? They don't understand and they want an explanation. I said, well, I just don't want it. And I tell them I could eat a side, but to me, what's the point? I don't want that in my stomach. I want more meat in my stomach. Yeah. They don't understand that in my head, I know that side contains nothing nutritious, that the meat contains all the fat, protein, vitamins, and minerals, and that other stuff, we think differently. They should think this way, I believe, but they don't understand it. It's hard to explain from our perspective why we don't eat all the sides, and I'm happy with all the meat. And some carnivores do eat sides, and that's fine. They do it just for Thanksgiving. That's their cheat meal, is to have some vegetables. Yeah. And I guess that's
one day a year. I mean, like one day every now and then, it's not going to do much damage. But
one day, yeah. I don't care for it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, why take up space when you can fill it with more meat?
Yeah.
And on that same point too, like I'm full, but I'm not like sick, weighted, bloated, like that, just like that impenetrable, I don't know. It's just like, 40 pounds not adding to me like I used to feel after eating, probably, well, honestly, because like you can't, it's not, the carb stuff isn't satiating. So you can just keep going back, till you're just sick. And now it's like, I probably ate more than maybe I needed to, or more than I would normally in a meal on a regular day. But it's like, 3-4 hours later now, I feel fine. And I'm not like, still recovering from that. It's like, that's good. And like I put out some, like pickles and olives and things like that for everybody else. And I don't feel bad doing stuff like that either, because they're, those are whole foods. They're not hyper processed, you know what I mean? So, and I made a couple desserts with Illy yesterday. So, cause she likes to cook and bake. And so we made apple cider jello. So we just used organic, unfiltered apple cider that we found at the grocery store. So it's still got some of the sediment, some of the pulp in it, no added sugar, and then grass-fed beef gelatin. And we cooked it up and poured it into molds. And that's one of our little desserts. And then we made pumpkin custard. So like it tastes just like pumpkin pie, but without the crust, just canned pumpkin, 100% pumpkin, heavy cream, egg yolks. And we put pumpkin pie spice and about like 2 tablespoons of maple syrup for the whole batch. And I think we got 10 little cheese, little custards out of that. So for people that aren't, 100% carnivore, it's like, that's still something that, is still made from all whole food ingredients. It's not full of added sugar and processed flour and seed oil and all that kind of stuff. So like, even if on a holiday you want to splurge and have, something that's a little bit outside of your norm and it doesn't trigger you and you can, doesn't make you sick and stuff like that, there's still relatively healthy whole food recipes that you can enjoy too, I think. So, or for kids or things like that who are not metabolically sick or don't have inflammation issues like some of us are dealing with. So, I think really this whole mindset of that we're shifting into now, just once the curtain's pulled back and you see what these hyper processed foods are about, how they became so ubiquitous, how, the way they're marketed, the way that they weave all of this into, what these holidays mean, and not just Thanksgiving and Christmas, but, we've got like a holiday for a Hallmark holiday for 400 other things all year, right? There's this and that day and this and that day and celebrate this day. And so like, there's always an excuse to buy something, to send somebody candy and all this, you know what I mean? So it's just like, once we see that and we realize that, and we go to this, what some people would say extreme, to really see like, okay, am I addicted to this stuff? Is this really controlling me, or am I in control of what I consume? What emotional ties do I have to things during things like holidays? Does that trigger me into doing things that I don't want to do for my own health? Or like, what's my relationship with that? Once you can start to examine those things, and the longer you do this, I think the more that's exposed to you. And then you can start to actually choose and make your decisions from an empowered place versus a disempowered place where, the food or the marketing or the social pressure or whatever else is controlling you, versus you are making the choice about what you're going to consume. And so that's really the message that I think is my favorite about doing this. And then kind of, seeing where I am in another holiday season, it's like, that feels really good, versus in the past, maybe I wouldn't have wanted to do or eat or drink certain things, but I couldn't control that. I was always like, had no willpower and couldn't, stop after 1 or stop after 3 or stop after the whole pie or things like that, and now it's completely different. And so I think that's, to go off on a tangent again, that's kind of, what I think is a positive take that we can feel good about, because a lot of times it is still hard for people, especially if this is your first holiday or your first time doing this on this way of eating. It can be, you can feel like you're the odd one out or the weird one, or, but
you're missing out.
I
You
feel very
like you're
empowered
missing out as well.
Exactly.
Like, I think a lot of people feel like they're missing out on all those good desserts and all those sides and things like that sometimes as well. But like, that's the thing too. At least try and make sure that you source your food as natural as possible. The biggest thing is, like, we've been eating fiat food. Basically, it's that they make as much of the food out of chemicals, the cheapest they can make it, right? To make sure that they get as much profit as possible. Yeah. So it's all just chemical food. All these other different holidays and like you're talking about buy candy and stuff like that, like chocolates, like was it Valentine's Day, right? Like in America, in the West, we usually just have the one day, Valentine's Day, and you send your girlfriend or husband or whatever, your partner, chocolates and stuff like that. Places like Japan, they actually have 2. There's what they call Valentine's Day, where girls give chocolates to men, and then they have White Day 3 weeks later, where men, send chocolates and flowers to women. But like even chocolate used to be like a naturally sourced chocolate. It used to be quite, well, I wouldn't say healthy, but it wasn't so unhealthy. Whereas today, fiat food, it's all chemicals. It just as 2 days ago, there was a story done on Lindt chocolates, for example. Swiss maker, it's excellence in chocolate and all this sort of stuff. But they find things like lead and cadmium in the chocolates. These are, again, these ultra processed foods, and even though they might have chocolatiers making these things, where they source the ingredients from matters, and they source these ingredients from all over the place. So
that's a big complaint that I've always had. When I started my carnivore diet, it wasn't just a carnivore diet. It was more of sort of like avoid anything that is produced by labor that you wouldn't do yourself. So I've always been against harvesting vegetables because you got people out there in the sun harvesting the vegetables. You got these fruit pickers that are picking fruit. And again, a lot of migrant labor, and you have things that are done in other countries. But I do believe, even though I'm carnivore myself, there's nothing wrong with growing fruits and vegetables. I grow fruits and vegetables. I've had people come on my channel and say, well, you're not a real carnivore. I've seen your videos of growing bananas and tomatoes and stuff like that. And I said, sure, I grow fruits and vegetables and I'll eat them occasionally. I don't really like them, but I don't think that they're bad for you. Now, I know that you have sort of the carnivore extremist. You have Anthony Chafee, for example. He eats pretty much like I do. It's a meat-based diet, but he actually says that plants are trying to kill you. I don't believe that. I don't believe that a plant has any intention of killing anybody any more than a fungus has an intention of killing somebody. Fungus, they want to digest you, not necessarily kill you. But when you think about it, everything that comes from nature, if it's from a whole food source, not everybody can eat everything. Some people are allergic to certain foods. So it's very important that everybody experiment. If you're going to go and eat processed crap, you're going to have a bunch of stuff mixed together, and you're not going to know what's going to affect you. You may buy something and you eat it, and you don't even know it, and it has an effect on you. You don't know what ingredient it is. You may have a peanut allergy. A lot of people have that. Some people are allergic to nightshades, like tomatoes and stuff like that. There are people that are, they have the oxalate problems. But if you were to concentrate on just whole foods, it's like I tell people that I know. I have a friend that was vegan and vegetarian most of his life. He switched to carnivore. He didn't do so well. So I said, look, go back to some of the vegetables and just try to minimize what you're eating. Don't mix things together. Eat different whole foods. And he found the right combination of foods that work. And again, I found that by fermenting certain vegetables, you can actually reduce the bad effects. At least in my case, if I want to use vegetables for cooking or just for eating, I'll ferment them first. So there's nothing wrong with having these whole foods, but when you mix these things together, especially if you buy the stuff in bags and packages in the store, it's like Russian roulette. You don't know what you're doing to your body, and it really doesn't make sense. And as several of you have said, if there's meat and there's sides, we're going to go for the meat because that's what we like, or that's what works best for us. So why would you waste your time with this other stuff? Now, if you're one of the people that can eat that stuff and you don't have any health issues, that's fine. But even if you don't have issues when you're younger, maybe when you get older, these things start to affect you. And the older you get, the harder it is to absorb protein. So it may be a good idea, even if you were healthy on a plant-based diet or you were healthy on a mostly plant-based diet, as you get older, you may want to increase your animal foods because that can help you. You get more protein, you get more building blocks, and you reduce some of the anti-nutrients in the plants. You can see where that would work. So again, it's not an extremist diet, and I've had people accuse me of being an extremist. And the few times that I've gotten together with friends, a lot of times in the early days, they'd say I was picky. I didn't like to eat anything, but now it's no longer an issue. They know that I like meat. And if I want to take a bite out of something else, they know I'm probably going to give a funny face because that's just the way that I am. I'm very expressive. When people start talking about duck food, I start to feel kind of sick. And everybody laughs at that because it's just a habit of mine. But again, if you find something that works for you, go for it. And I think if you can harvest local foods, even if you like to eat stuff like nuts, fruits, berries, and stuff like that, and they don't bother you, why not eat them? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have to rely on foreign labor and transporting this stuff thousands of miles, it just doesn't seem like a sustainable way to eat. To me, local is good. So I agree with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Any other comments on this digestive question? Because I think that, that Rick, that was kind of your part of your response in the chat too. For me, yeah, I have very, very sensitive digestive system. If I eat a flake of kale, I will be sick for a week, basically is the type of situation that I'm in. So, things like onions, garlic, any sort of FODMAP, in that category, starches, grains, all of that flares up all of my inflammation, immediately and for, days, sometimes weeks after I consume small amounts of it. So I definitely avoid them because I feel like plants are trying to kill me. But I agree with you. I don't think, they're not conscious. They're just trying to survive, just like everything else is, right? So
Well,
they're trying to, I would probably
not
rephrase it and say they are trying
kill
to
you, but
deter
they are
you.
defending themselves.
They're deterring you. Yeah, they are defending themselves. So, and you're right. I think different people have different levels of sensitivity to different things. And so really that is what we're doing here. We are trying to figure out what makes my body feel best. And for some of us, like me, that means I have to be pretty strict carnivore and no dairy and things like
Our
that.
body chemistries are so unique and varied and different, and what works for you doesn't work for another person. So finding what works for you. If some fruits and nuts and plants and vegetables work for you and you're honest with yourself, who are we to argue? You're your own N equals 1. But plants definitely are trying to protect themselves, which you can word it the other way and say plants are trying to kill you. It's just a phrasing thing. They are protecting themselves. They've developed the chemical defenses. And that's a fact because we know these chemicals. We know what they are. We know which chemicals are in which vegetables and fruits, especially the nuts and seeds are the highest. So some people who are super sensitive, those are the ones who have those nut allergies, and they get anaphylaxis. It's so bad. I'm blessed in that I have absolutely no food allergies at all. I have one to stevia because I'm allergic to ragweed, and stevia molecule similar to ragweed molecule. And I found that out when I when I went low carb and I was trying sweetened things. I couldn't figure out why I had such severe, terrible headaches when I used stevia. All right, live and learn. But that's my body. It doesn't happen to many other people. So whatever works for you, if you ferment things and they make you feel better, I love raw kefir, love it. I discovered it makes me function even better. So I've added that recently. All right. Somebody else may have a major problem with the lactose and it causes major bowel problems. So it's different for that person. So find what works for you. Don't preach it like a religious zealot because everybody's different. What works for me has to work for you. And we push it. There's some facts that are just general facts that fit everything, but a lot of things are based on body chemistry, a lot of foods.
That and where you live. Your
And
climate you live in is important.
And your genetics.
Where you live is a big factor too.
My ancestors are from Sicily, so I can, I'm Southern European. So it must have something to do with what I can eat as well versus people who live, in the Nordic regions, just ancestrally, genetically. Some foods are more agreeable or less agreeable.
Yeah. I mean, like Rick's saying too, depending on where you live on the equator and things like that, hotter, humid climate,
Mm-hmm.
you sweat out deuterium and things like that. You can get away with eating more carbohydrates, for example. Just going back to that digestive question, there are some things that I can get away with. I like fermented vegetables like sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is really good for your stomach, or for me anyway. It would really help me in get past things like IBS. After chemotherapy, I had no lining left on my esophagus, my stomach, my digestive tract. All that was gone. It was cooked. Like I literally had thick layers of skin come out of, internally. So, when it comes to eating things that are really hard, things like high in fiber, it just ruins you after that. Like, I can't handle any of that stuff at all. It's, when fiber gets into your stomach, it expands. It's the only thing that does this. It expands to up to 5 times its size. which means it's going to cause a lot of inflammation right through your digestive tract when you try and break that down. So nuts, grains, things like that, anything hard, and even like cabbage, if it's raw, I can't eat it, but fermented, like in sauerkraut, is fantastic, you know. But on the carnivore diet and a high-fat carnivore diet, I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. I don't use it now, but I don't shy away from eating it every now and then because it's still very good. But anything else like that, anything that's highly acidic as well, like nightshades, like tomatoes and things like that, no. And I've got nothing against, like Rick was saying before, like if you grow it yourself as well, we are meant to eat seasonally, you know. So when it's hotter, we can get away with eating more carbohydrates because it's, you know, eating more deuterium, you sweat it out and things like that. But in the winter and things like that, there are some late blooming like berries and things that used to help us get fat for the fasting through winter and things like that. But you know, these things only last a couple of weeks. They don't, you know, sort of, they're not all year round. They're not meant to be. You just go down to the local supermarket and pick it up and eat as much as you want all year round, like every day. That's just too much, and that's not even considering the way they are grown, like all the chemicals that go into, you know, these monocrop farms and these large industrial farms. You know, when they spray these chemicals on their crops, farmers can't go out into the fields for days, sometimes weeks, until, you know, it's all soaked in. You know, when they spray these things, they're wearing like big chemical masks, things like that. You know, so what is it doing to your food? You know, these are not safe to eat in any way.
And they're genetically modified to resist that, so they can grow taller and stronger and
the other problem is that all the chemicals that they're using destroy the soil, bacteria, the fungi, and the relationship of the microorganisms. And if you've ever tried to grow plants in a pot, you know how difficult it is. You have to put a certain amount of fertilizer and a certain amount of water. I know a lot of people, they kill house plants all the time. And yet you take that same plant, you stick it in the ground, and under the right conditions, it'll have a better chance of surviving. Because you have the soil, you have a greater area, you have fungi and bacteria working together. And you know, a lot of people don't realize it, but there's types of fungi that coexist with the root systems of plants. Fungi generally live off of glucose or other sugars, and the plants produce extra sugars to feed the fungi. If you live here in Florida, you know that we have these native pine trees. You can't transplant them because they coexist with fungi. And if you have an empty lot and you build houses on it, they usually die within a few years because all the land clearing activity, the chemicals and everything, they kill off the fungi they coexist with. When you're growing fruit in a grove, you're creating a system that's a monocrop. And whatever fungi you have in there, it has a tendency to become pathogenic. There's no mix of species. And it's the same thing with plants themselves. In nature, they use chemicals to try to repel insects and animals and so on. But the thing is that every plant has at least one species that likes to eat it and that can eat a lot of it. And that depends on having predators. The predators that eat the pests that eat the plant. But when you have a monocrop, you have to spray the pests. That destroys all the predators. So then what happens is every so often the pests come back, they start eating the plant. You got to spray them again. Then you got to spray it again. Then you've destroyed the soil structure. It doesn't hold water as well. So when it rains, the water runs off. Now you have fertilizer and pesticides running off into the rivers, going into the water table, poisoning the water. Algae's growing everywhere. And then, of course, they blame, well, it's the farmers, it's the ranchers and all that. But it's really just the way that they're handling the soil, pouring all those chemicals on there, because they've taken a natural system that should be self-supporting, and they've turned it into a giant container. They're using the same technique that somebody living in an apartment uses to grow stuff on their patio. So you're working against nature. And the other thing that they don't realize, all that genetic modification, all it's doing is giving the plant a disadvantage, because now all these plants are genetically identical. All it takes is one pathogenic bacteria, fungus, or even insect to just hit one of those plants and it will wipe them all out. Look at what's happening with the bananas. Cavendish bananas, they're being wiped out. They have to go through extreme measures to prevent them from getting fungi from one to the other. Whereas in the wild, the bananas that produce seeds, they're genetically different. The same thing with growing fruits. When you have a grove where they're all the same, it's like the avocados they have here. There's a fungus that attacks the avocado trees. It's some type of, I forget the name of it, but it's just something. These trees are grafted. They're all pretty much the
Look
same.
at our orange trees. We were
And,
known
well,
for
look at-
oranges, and we don't have them anymore.
Well, that's a lot of that's because the developers are so greedy. But if you think about it, they've had citrus canker, they've had
For
the
years.
citrus greening, they've had all kinds of viral diseases and insects. I mean, it's just because they're all the same. They're
Yeah.
all grafted to be the same.
Mhm.
Because in the wild, citrus are generally sour.
Mhm.
I have wild citrus around my house. They're all sour. I have never had a wild citrus plant that was sweet. And I use them to marinate meats. I actually like the sour fruit myself because I hate everything that's sweet. But if you think about it, they're constantly fooling around. Really, the most important thing is diversity. And what industry? I mean, all the agricultural industries, they go on economies of scale. You have to have the exact same thing planted exactly the same distance apart. But when you're raising animals regeneratively, they're moving around. You don't have to have the same exact species. The only thing you have to do is look around plants that may be toxic to the cattle and remove them. But other than that, you can have multiple species of grass. And then the cattle poop and they urinate and they feed the fungi and the bacteria. And it's kind of a coexisting system. And, but yeah, I don't know. It's just that the agricultural system is a disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, commercial farms. Yeah, the commercial farms are shocking, and they can't. I mean, they just strip everything out of all the nutrients out of the soil, but they can't replace it with the man-made fertilizers. What cows do, traditionally farmers have always, they've gone from one field to the next field, and cattle will come in and they'll fertilize it, and then they'll grow crops, and then the next field, they just keep sort of rotating these sort of things like regenerative farms do. And they, it wasn't until they started commercially growing all this stuff, they just figured, well, we'll just keep planting and use man-made fertilizers and stuff and pesticides, and we'll get better crops, sort of thing. And all these genetic modifying to make the fruit beautiful and more appealing to the buyers. Fruit doesn't look that clean naturally. But you're right. Like talking about fungi that coexist with tree roots, plant roots. That's what truffles are. They grow at the roots of certain types of trees, and the most expensive ones in France are all grown organically, because if they use pesticides and things like that, the fungi dies.
I feel like there's an interesting parallel between that sort of like, what used to be more natural farming practices to now the monocropping practice where, and I don't know if this totally lines up, but this is just where my brain went, was reading something about how, when we were hunter gatherers and more tribal people, and then we came into building civilization, right? All these communicable diseases skyrocketed because you're putting a bunch of people in close quarters. There's sanitation issues. There's not enough space, and you're cramming a bunch of people into one space and trying to have all the resources and keep the elimination of what we don't need and the bringing in of what we need all good for everybody, right? But then you have all these problems, and it kind of just popped into my head, sort of with this whole trying to monocrop things and create this highly systematic way of producing food that eliminates a lot of the diversity, like Rick was saying. And you've got to come in with all these chemicals now. Just like last night on John's show, we were talking about, we mentioned the farmed fish. And like, once you see how, all the antibiotics they got to give these fish because they're just like rubbing each other. They're so close and they get infections and stuff. It's like that causes more issues than, like where are the pros and cons here? Like, yeah, you have a lot more food production and it's easier and more accessible for a huge variety for basically everybody, or, more people than ever on the planet before. However, now there's all these other interventions that have to come out of that. And we don't know the effect. We're starting now to realize the effects of some of those things. And so how do we course correct? It's like you kind of go from one extreme to the other extreme, and then you've got to find the balance that works for society today. And so I think that's kind of where I see us as a society right now, is like more and more people are waking up to this fact that, hey, in the US, we spend, $2.2 billion a year on chronic disease in this country. It's somewhere right around there. Like, it's one of the things we spend the most on. And so clearly what we've been doing isn't working, or the way things are right now is not serving people. And so we've got to figure out another way, or we're going to destroy ourselves one way or another, whether it's economically or health-wise or a combination of the two. And so that's why, I think this whole conversation is a good summary of that. Like, finding out what works for you, taking responsibility for your own health, learning to make decisions from an empowered place so that you can live a lifestyle and still, have fun and enjoy yourself, and maybe have a little something on a holiday or whatever works for you, but coming into a place of realizing that, hey, I have the power to control my health outcomes for the most part. There are some genetic things that we can't change, but epigenetics works, like our environment and what we put in works. And so changes things. And so we really can make big changes just by continuing to spread this message of, not that everybody has to be 100% carnivore, but holy crap, take the processed food out.
Right.
Holy crap, look at what seed oils do to people. Holy crap, look at what all this excessive sugar and all of the lies about saturated fat and sodium and cholesterol and all these things, right? So if we can just get people to understand, okay, going back to whole foods, growing your own vegetables, fermenting your own vegetables if you're going to consume them, your own fruits, things like that, fermenting your own dairy, sourcing the best local quality animal products that you can, if you can afford that. Like, that literally that could be everything, to create massive positive change.
Good
Yeah,
summary.
that's right.
Very good summary about it all. Absolutely, Nia. And I really feel that if we stop complicating things as humans, we make everything so complicated. And, our channels, it's all about keeping it simple, going back to basic foods with the one ingredient. Make that ingredient as healthy as possible with the money you can afford, with the amount that you can afford, and that's it. We over process even our thinking. People have to count calories and weigh and measure how much protein. Nobody knows how much protein you're supposed to have. You have to have more when you're older, less when you're young. How much fat are you supposed to have? How many grams for your body weight? Nobody knows that. Just we've made this so complicated, and that's why I think people are confused. And the doctors and the messaging out there makes it confusing. So if we just eat single ingredient foods that come from the animal kingdom, as cleanly sourced as possible, until we feel comfortably stuffed, we get we get all we need by listening to our body signals. And that's how I think we can all get healthy. And yes, all the variables of everybody's body chemistry exist. And you find out what works for you. Like you just said, Nia, everything you said was such a great summary. But we need to uncomplicate this whole thing. They're confused. They don't understand how to eat, human beings. And yet the animals in the wild know what to eat instinctively. That's what always gets me.
That's exactly right. I mean, we've never counted macros before.
I know.
We've never counted anything. People would just eat until they're hungry, and then they didn't when they weren't hungry. Simple. Right. It's not that complicated, really. But I think the last 10,000 years have probably been the worst. I think for humanity, really, since the agricultural revolution. But like all carbohydrates. Thinking from just from the mechanism side of things, animal products are really low in deuterium. Any carbohydrate that you add to your body, your liver makes fat from. So you get fatty liver disease from carbohydrates. All right, it doesn't matter how little the amount, an overabundance of glucose. We always produce glucose in our blood anyway because our body uses it for energy. But we get it from other sources. We don't need to eat it. We don't need to eat it. Is what I'm saying. But fatty liver is pretty much the start of most chronic disease as well. So just eat a naturally sourced, a good sourced animal fat diet, and it's really easy thing to do. Like I said, we never counted macros before. We never counted how much fat and how much protein we should get before. We haven't never done that. It's only been the last 100 years, maybe less, really. So why worry about it? Don't. Just get on with, eat and get on with the rest of your life.
I agree. Totally. Now, deuterium, ever since you introduced me to that, I did some research. I'm going to be making a video soon about it. And one of the things I learned why deuterium is so bad is because it's 2 or 3 times the size of a regular hydrogen atom. And because of that, it goes in there, and anything that a hydrogen atom does, this deuterium atom is doing it instead. And it's like a bulldozer. It's destroying things as it's moving through the body. Am I correct about that, DC?
You're close. I mean, usually like foods that are high in deuterium are always carbohydrates. But we do have a certain amount of deuterium in everything we have.
Right.
And we have a certain amount that we need. Our body does need deuterium, a certain amount. But after that, it just becomes too much. So it's like foods that are high in deuterium just means it has more atoms, and it clogs together.
They're bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, they grow bigger because they clump together, and inside your mitochondria is what you call the Krebs cycle, right? And this is kind of like a little electromagnetic wheel. It kind of spins around and sends all these ATP and things like that around to your body for energy and things like that. But if that gets clogged, so that little wheel can't spin, it kills the cell,
right?
And you start killing the mitochondria. That's when you start having chronic disease problems. So, yes, we do get deuterium from everything that we eat. We do sweat it out. There are ways we expel deuterium when we sweat, when we do different things, urinate, defecate, all these different things. When we breathe as well. But foods that are high in deuterium are going to cause are the start of chronic disease. Basically.
These are the starches and sugars.
Starches, sugars, anything high in carbohydrates of any kind.
There's another reason there I'm going to add on to when I do my talks is I'm going to talk about deuterium, about carbs and sugar. So,
and that's what fiber does too. So everyone tells you got to have fiber. These are things that are very high. They're just insoluble sugars, basically.
Right.
Okay. It's like eating sandpaper, and it's very high in deuterium.
Yeah. Ooh, nasty. Well, this has been a good Thanksgiving for me. Again, I'm thankful for all my friends, all my carnivore friends. I've been on so many lives. Nia, I'm grateful for having to come on here on Thursdays. I appreciate you letting me come on. DC, when I come on yours, I'm appreciative of Rick's wisdom. I learn something from Rick every night. He's like my teacher, I swear. I just take the knowledge in and add it to what I already know, and then I try to pass it on and teach others. So I'm just so grateful for all the knowledge and trying to always stay curious and not get fixed, and admit when I'm wrong, when I get something wrong. That's important too. A lot of us are stubborn, and we have to admit sometimes that we believe something we shouldn't have believed in sometimes. That's where some of the general public, they need to understand that when it comes to cholesterol and saturated fats and all the myths that they still believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And that's again what I hope will happen for the general population. Because, you know, kind of like we've been talking about too, like not everybody's into this. Not everybody wants to understand metabolism and how it works and, you know, really get into the nitty gritty of all this stuff. And I totally understand that, you know, like there's days where I'm like, I wish I didn't have to focus and worry on that, you know, or think about all this kind of stuff, or mostly in the past, you know, when I was very deep into trying to figure out what to do next and stuff. Like it's just it can be another stressor for a lot of people. And so it's totally understandable that people don't want to, you know, necessarily like dive into all of the conspiracy and the history of everything and learning about all, you know, the human body and everything. But that's what I think is so appealing about this way of eating too, is it offers radical simplicity and radical intuitive like connection back to your body and how it feels. And it just allowed, like we talk about this all the time, how restrictive it seems on the surface because you're limited to, you know, so many less food choices than maybe, you know, what you were used to in the past. But the amount of wisdom you gain about your, you know, your own body and your own experience and how you react to things and what it's like to feel completely different, like you're in a different body based on what you eat. It's like that's so powerful. And so I think if people could just, if you want to think of it as a diet, right? Or an elimination diet, or I'm just going to try, right? A lot of people come in this, I'm just going to do this for 30 days. Right. And then I'll go back to I'll reintroduce things. I'll bring things back in and just going to do it for 30 days. And then if you really do it truly for 30 days, you realize, holy crap, like there's something to this, right?
Exactly.
Maybe I don't want to reintroduce. Maybe I want to go to 60 days and then maybe 90 days. And so I think there's a certain subset of people that are kind of more open to trying things like that. And then maybe a subset of people that aren't. And so that's always my hope, is that with the simplicity of this, the hyper intuitive nature that really you don't have to count, you don't have to track, you just really learn to just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, and you lose weight, and you don't have to, you know, beat yourself up in the gym on the cardio machine in order to achieve that, right? It's just this almost effortless process that happens. That's got to be the natural thing. Like that has to be our natural state, right? It should not be this war zone, you know, every day to figure out what to eat and starving yourself and, well, I can't eat until tomorrow because it's like, just, you can let go of all that. So I hope that's the message that we can, you know, that
I
people
think
can
that
grab
one
onto
thing
as
that
well.
we should all be able to agree on is that government and corporations should have no say in what we eat. Guidelines and all this sort of other BS that goes around, these people should have absolutely no say in what we eat. And like before you said it's a restrictive diet. If you look at it from the standpoint of nutrients, I think the standard Western diet is far more restrictive because none of that is food. And basically what, you know, the problems that you see, even obese people, it's not because they eat too much. It's because they're overfed and undernourished. They're actually malnourished people. Even though they are fat, they are malnourished because they're not getting the nutrients that their body needs for a proper operation, you know. So from a viewpoint of simple nutrients, we are very much, you know, the standard Western diet is just far more restrictive than the carnivore diet is. And
But they don't know it, DC.
Yeah.
They are in a fog. They are
Yeah.
eating what they've always been eating because it's what's there. It's what's out there.
And
It's part
vegans
of
are the
culture.
same.
Yeah, and it's part of culture. It's part of holidays and traditional events. And they think we're restrictive because we're not eating their stuff. And they don't realize that they're malnourished, and we are like, we have so much nutrition. We're getting everything we need from our animal products.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't even realize that all these years I've been eating this way. I had no idea that this was actually a good diet. I was convinced that I was giving myself a heart attack. I was going to drop dead, you know, but I felt so good. And it's just amazing. Everybody else, the older they get, they have all these problems. They have to go to the doctor all the time. I stopped going to the doctor in 96. I've never been on a prescription medication. I've never been an antibiotic. I just stepped on a nail last month, a rusty nail in my yard. No, actually, that was at Home Depot. I've stepped on nails in my yard. I've been scratched by the cat, cut, been stuck by plants. I've had all kinds of mishaps. And I know people, they got one little burn in the kitchen and they had an infection and they had to go and get antibiotics. I mean, it's just crazy. And now I got friends that have heart disease, and they're younger than me. And I'm thinking, wow, I thought I was going to end up dead. Everyone's obese. I've never been obese. It's just, and they're eating this stuff. And then now that I see it, it's like my eyes were open. I can't believe how bad this stuff really is. I had no idea that these people are ruining their lives eating a bunch of what I call duck food. I laugh at it. It's cheap duck food. If I go to a buffet, I always hit the meat. I always go for the highest quality food. And then they're over there raving about the mashed potatoes and the gravy. And I hate gravy. I think gravy is disgusting. It looks like something that came out of the rear end of a duck. It's just nasty. It's got flour in it. It's awful. And, I mean, to me, a delicious steak, maybe some seafood, some dairy. Okay, that's fine. But all this complicated cooking and baking and all this stuff. And when I go by a bakery, I feel sick. I see those people lined up to eat that stuff, and it's not cheap. You go in the store, you look at all the packaged crap in the middle of the store. It's not cheap. Most of this stuff costs more pound per pound than simple beef. And it's like, and look, in 2022 was the first time that I really got on a YouTube channel and I related my experience. And then I started getting interviewed. I was interviewed obviously by Anthony Chafee and Sean Baker and a lot of different carnivores. And now I realize this is actually a good way of life. So that's why you see me on all these lives all the time. Otherwise, I never made a carnivore video. I never mentioned it. It's just the way that I ate. I didn't think about it. But look at you, all three of you. You've all had this experience. I haven't had that experience. I haven't been sick. I've never had back pain. I've never had joint pain. I've never had any of the skin conditions or any of the other problems that everybody else has had. I just was skinny and short and I was upset and I wanted to get a heart attack. I ended up growing. It seems like my IQ went up. My grades went up, but I never thought about it. But instead of eating the duck food, the survival food or whatever, I like to eat the meat. And all of you, including all the carnivores that I've interviewed and all the ones that I see, and I look for the new carnivores, you have encouraged me. You've given me something that I never had before. And that's a confidence that I am not really on the heart attack diet. Even though I joke about it, I love to joke about heart attack foods and iguanas and all that. And people get offended. Why do you call it the heart attack diet? They don't understand the story.
Right.
But it's just so nice because now when I talk to people, I don't feel like I'm trying to kill them by giving them a heart attack. And they, what do you like to eat? Well, okay, I'll have a steak and maybe I'll have some duck or seafood or whatever. And it's actually, I feel good. My attitude has changed. I do feel a little bad because a lot of people that I tried to eat this way, including my parents, they wouldn't do it. If you guys would have been around when my dad was alive, I think he would have switched to the carnivore diet as well because he could see all the carnivores out there. But in 2010, there were no carnivore channels. I mean, I never even knew that a carnivore existed. I was the only one. I mean, there was an old man that used to eat a lot of meat, but I never knew this was a diet. It wasn't until really 2020 when we had the COVID thing, I started seeing carnivore channels. 2022 when I started getting involved. And, it's 2 years later now. And now it's like second nature. Look at how many popular channels you have now. Everybody knows the doctors and then the Homestead How. And then our channels, I guess, are growing a little bit. You see the stories. So now you look on Google, you look for carnivore diet, and look, we all pop up. But 10 years ago, there was nothing. So I'm grateful to you because you've opened my eyes. And remember, I've been eating this way for a long time. I had no idea. So I just want to thank you for giving me that insight and hope for the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. It wasn't around back then. Like people think they're doing everything, even people think they're doing everything right. Some people out there don't care. They just eat whatever they want, and that's fine. It's their life too. But I did everything right. I had a low-fat diet, I had low cholesterol, everything was good. I was fit. I was in the fitness industry, and I ended up with stage 4 cancer, and I was still suffering from it. So it's but I did everything right. I was eating less calories than I was burning. All that sort of utter nonsense. And the fact that now it is starting to gain some ground, and people are becoming more aware of the situation that we are in against these big food companies and so on, education and so-called MDs and all the rest of it. It's good to see that there are more people coming on, and there are more channels. There are more people talking about it. There are so many healing stories. I think that's because apart from Rick, there is so much chronic disease out there that so many people have had trouble with, but are overcoming. And these anecdotal stories are how we learn, and how we have always learned. And this is better than this is a real world study. This is all these anecdotes. This is real world observation of what works. None of these lab grown sort of studies that are bought and paid for by corporations. They don't mean anything if they don't work in the real world. It doesn't mean a damn thing. You can quote all the 5-day ridiculous nonsense studies that you want. They don't mean nothing. They don't mean anything if it doesn't work in the real world. These anecdotal stories, sure, there might be some exaggeration, because there's always people that exaggerate or are somewhat biased towards the way of eating that they had, and so on. But there are so many now that this would have to be classed as probably the world's biggest study that has ever been out there. And that's not including, this diet is probably the most studied diet in history. Over the last 200 years, it's been done by Salisbury. That's been done by the French through the Alexandria siege. They ate horse meat to get rid of scurvy, and it became a popular diet in France. They eat raw meat in Japan. They've the Bellevue study from Wilhelm Stephenson. This has been the most studied diet. Ketogenic and meat has been studied more than anything else, and has always prevailed. And these anecdotal stories of people in the real world actually healing from eating meat, this is what you should be listening to, not ridiculous, corporate sponsored garbage that is basically just amounts to an opinion piece by someone who has obvious bias.
Yeah, those two athletes, the one's a football player, I forget the other guy. They do one is Taylor Swift's boyfriend. Those two guys, big advertisements on TV pushing cereal. That's what's getting the attention, because they're popular. Kids want to be like them. It's sad. It really is. It's all about money.
It's disgusting.
These
celebrities have done that for a long time. Here there's a product Nestle owns. It's called Milo. It's like a chocolate malt drink, right? And people grow up on this crap. It's absolutely toxic. And they used to call it, like back in the 60s. There's a commercial, like these famous cricket players were promoting, "I drink Milo," and they actually labeled it as a health food tonic. Right?
Ovaltine.
Like the same stuff basically. Disgusting chemical crap. But they use these celebrities to do this all the time, and these useful idiots just do it because they get paid the big bucks, and that's on TV, so it must be good. Oh well, I want to be an athlete, I want to be a famous cricket player, I want to be a basketballer or whatnot. So they eat the same junk, and they come out sick, unhealthy, and never make it because they eat what they think these so-called pro athletes eat. It's disgusting.
Yeah, totally. And that's where I think more and more people are finally realizing that this is a game. You know what I mean? Like, this is a game, and we are either active participants playing this game, as empowered people making our own choices, or we are getting played by the people that are, writing the rules and setting the stage and doing, all this other stuff. So it's really a mindset, a mindset shift that happens once you get into this and you realize, oh my gosh, they don't care about me and no one is coming to save me and I have to figure this out. Not saying you can't go to the doctor, not saying you can't ever be on a prescription. Again, not saying you can't ever, use both. But for the most part, we have outsourced our knowledge and what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we've just outsourced our responsibility to the medical system, and it's not a relationship anymore. And so again, like, we have to learn how to do what we can. And then if there's something we need to work with a doctor about, that's fine. But it's really, there's so much influence from people, celebrities like you were talking about. And, and it's just like, since when does that, like whoever made the comment too about, since when do we look at celebrities and government that has all these vested interests with major corporations? Like, how can that possibly be unbiased, real, helpful information, right? Like, I don't think you have to be a tinfoil hatter to speculate about that. So I know we're kind of past the hour a little bit, and I don't want to keep everybody super late if you don't have time. So I guess maybe we could do a quick round of final comments and probably let everybody go here in the next 15 minutes or so, unless there's anything else anybody has on their heart they want to throw out there.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a good point. Like, take control of your health. Doesn't matter what situation you are in. You can always make it better by taking control of what you eat, what you consume. That can be mentally as well as physically. Like, what you listen to, what you watch. These things matter as well as to your state of mind. But definitely diet. And I say this from experience. It doesn't matter what situation you are in, you can always improve it. I'm not saying you will always recover 100% and be better than before, but you can improve it. And if you know my story, I know what I'm talking about because I've been there. And if I can do it, then you can too. So take control, take responsibility, because responsibility leads to your freedom.
Well said. Well said. I encourage my YouTube subscribers, anybody, to eat beef, lamb. If you want to have some pork or poultry, keep that to a minimum. Wild caught fish, pasture raised eggs if you can, and cook only in animal fats. Some people think it's okay to use coconut oil, olive oil, and avocado oil. I don't agree, but it's less bad than seed oils. But I stick with just butter and ghee and beef tallow. I feel the best on it. And when we do that, we're living our optimized selves. Our body starts healing. We feel better. And like DC said, I think he mentioned it in the little thing a little before this, that, all the studies out there and anything that everybody says, the most important thing is when it works for you. What works for you is what works for you. Our N equal 1 experiment outweighs any study. And so many of us are on here saying that this way of eating, the low carb, no seed oil, low starch and seed oil, and carbs, is the healthiest ancestral way to eat. And a lot of us are improving our lives. We're healing our bodies. You had brain cancer, my goodness, stage 4. So many people are alive and healthy because they're eating what their body was meant to eat. And we're clearing away all the clutter and the clouds that's out there to finding what it is. And it's basically just, beef, fish, and eggs, if you're into fish. And that's just keeping it simple and eating what your body thrives on. And when you just give your body that chance, like you mentioned too, Nia, if you just do it for a little while, you're not going to just stop because you realize how amazing you feel. You keep going. It's not a diet anymore. It's a way of eating. So make it a way of eating and do it for yourself. And then you can be a role model for people around you. Eventually, people will see how healthy you are and how happy you are. And you will inspire them to maybe make a change in their life.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you. No one's going to be inspired by me. I can guarantee that.
Oh, not true.
I don't know. I don't
You
think too many
inspire
people.
me. I
Really?
wish I started when I was your age. That's the thing. So many of
Yeah,
us
but
wish we had started many years earlier. We wouldn't have had some of the
Absolutely, Rick.
traumas that we went through because if
well,
we
that's true.
I
That's
could
a
have been
good point.
taller.
Well, that is true too. And and I've become to realize that all these problems, when I see the experiences of you and all the other people, I mean, if you look at Dave Mack's,
Oh my
no
gosh,
carb
yeah.
channel, it's
Yeah.
got hundreds and hundreds of
Thousands.
experiences. You just keep looking at this one after the other after the other. I never knew this existed. I mean, I thought that I was the heart attack man. I was going to be dropping dead and that's it. But when I see everybody else and I realize you got people that have reversed digestive issues and cancer and you got what's his name, Lee Copus, that had his colon removed. He's eating carnivore diet and you can see what's going through your system.
Right.
Why in the world would you want to load your colon with more fiber when you could just eat the protein and fats? And he's surviving just fine. And
Yeah.
and then I look at myself. Yeah, I'm a quack. I'm a little wacky. I'm not. People call me eccentric. Some of the vegans think I look unhealthy, but my goodness, the amount of work I can do. I do everything by myself. People ask me if I need help. I'm like, no, I can handle it. I never get injured. I don't have aches and pains. I sleep good. I feel great. I run into problems all the time. You don't know how many times things break down and things fail, and I always find my way through it. And other people I know, they freak out, they get mad, they lose their temper, they're complaining, they're blaming everybody for their issues, and then they go doctor's appointments constantly. I mean, they're always at the doctor. They got to go to the pharmacy, get their prescriptions, and I don't have to do any of that. My medicine cabinet is empty. It's got an old bandage can from like 40 years ago with cobwebs growing
You showed
on
it to us.
Yeah, I should. There's a
Show and
couple of
tell.
And your 2 Dixie cups and your
Dixie
medicine
cups that
cabinet.
are old.
That's another thing we love about you. You always have something to show us. It's so cool.
Well, the thing is, I live different than anybody. I'm like
do.
going to the past. You go to my house, there's technology here, but it would be right at home in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
You look at it, it's like, well, because I don't look at the latest technology. And some of the people that I know, look at some of the farmers out there that are raising cattle or even farming. They have old tractors and old equipment that they maintain because it's something they're familiar with. They can keep it going. They don't have to worry about complicated electronics and software you can't get, and they can make things happen. And that's the other thing about the carnivore diet. We don't need a lot of fancy supplements and chemicals and all this other stuff. We can just eat our carnivore foods and continue to live our lives. Look at the vegan friends I have. All the supplements and the juicing, and they got to mix this food with that food and this color with that color. It's a constant hassle. And me, I just open my refrigerator. I look for whatever meat is the oldest and I eat that. If I can catch it or cook it or pick it, I can eat it. And that's it. It's so simple. You don't have to be just like you said, you don't have to be worrying about macros. I don't count calories. What do I care about calories? I mean, I probably eat 6,000 calories or more on some days when I have my heart attack burger and heart attack chicken and all those fatty foods. And yet my weight is stable. Everybody else I know, I can't eat that. I got to watch my weight. Oh, my blood pressure and this and that. I don't have to worry about any of that. So, yeah, I mean, in a way, yeah, maybe I inspire some people. I think in my case, I don't. But then again, if I'm inspiring you, I must be doing something right. So I'm just going to keep going out there and spreading my message. And I hope somebody listens. And if I can meet more people and network with them, that's even better. Because I think that's where the real success comes from. We ourselves, we can't do anything. But if we get to know other people and we work with them, I think that's where the change really comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Rick. Yeah, when I grow up, I want to be like Rick.
Yeah, well, I love all you guys, and I'm grateful for your time tonight and continually on this show. This is one of my favorite things to do is come on here and chat with everybody, whoever can be on, and all of you in the chat. So, yeah, just to wrap up, myself, I'm feeling like extra grateful, extra like lovey-dovey this year, and I think it is because I generally just feel better as a human being. And also because I've really, kind of like I mentioned in the beginning, I've really consciously tried to um, put my attention on the little things, like enjoying the moments and not being so distracted and cutting out more media, like excessive media consumption out of my life so I can really focus on my kid. And, we had a little like spontaneous dance party last night. I mean, like we haven't had something like that in weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's because we were getting her desserts ready and put the Christmas music on. I know it's too early, but we did it anyway. And like, but we had a blast, you know what I mean? And like, that's one of like, and that just like made me cry because I thought, wow, like that's a memory that's like burned into my brain now, and it really had a little bit to do with food, but it didn't in full, and so I'm super grateful for my family and all my friends here online. Really, your support, through this channel means so much to me, and doing things like this means so much to me. Knowing that there's other people out there that are on the same journey, we're all on our own individual journeys, but we're all seeking the same outcome in general, which is to be the best we can be, to live the most vibrant, energetic, fulfilled lives that we can, be the best people in the roles that we have to serve, our family and friends and loved ones. And so there's nothing that brings me more fulfillment really than to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now with all of you in this context here. So I appreciate everybody, and thanks for being here tonight. I hope, again, if you're United States and you're celebrating this holiday, happy Thanksgiving. And if you're not, happy Thanksgiving to you anyway. And we will see you in 2 weeks for another Mastermind. I'll be live on Sunday. And just a quick promo, DC and I will be, and Joff, what's his channel handle?
Health Coach Joff.
Health Coach Joff will be live with Bart K on Monday evening. It'll be Monday evening my time, and I think that's what,
Tuesday
morning.
Yeah, Tuesday morning in Australia.
Y'all's time. Talking about doing another movement live, talking about getting moving again, and from all of our different perspectives as different people in the fitness industry. So that's coming up on Monday. And I think that's all I have to plug for today. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, America.